It's live, dude. It's live. Are you there?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, it didn't look like it. All right. Hi. Yes, now it's live. I just got the message. Hey, everybody. We're really professional here. Welcome to Honey Badger Radio. This is Badgerpod Gamergate.
Yes, it's Badgerpod Gamergate. Now let's figure out the freaking number. I think it's.
You mean like with a question mark?
Something
Badgerpod
and
Oh, it's 21. It's Badgerpod and Gamergate.
yeah, number 21. Ka-PAO.
Ka-PAO.
With the subtitle Sayonara, Iwata Sensei.
Yeah.
I am your host, Brian Martinez, and we're going to try to do this quickly. So I'm just going to go around and tell you who is on the panel today. We have Allison Tiemann, the brainchild, Otter Jesus, the Hug Beast, Hannah Wallen, story time, Rachel Edwards, the writer in the Giggle Fest, and
Janel.
Rita, the secret badger.
Yep. Wait, before you go, I just wanted to tell everyone I've done an update, or I've published an update by featuring the work of Harry Capito, and it's on the website now. So go to www.honeybadgersbrigade and look in the posts section. I know it's a little bit hard, but you know we don't like to be easy. We like to be both awkward and incredibly difficult. So that's how we roll. So, but go there if you want to see the legal update, because I have published it. There you go.
Yeah,
And
we're
there's
usually
also-
anal about our updates.
Is there some sort of innuendo in there?
No, that's
I'm searching for it.
detail-oriented. We want
Are we?
We're all about getting up in there and making sure that we're very.
Okay, now I know you're up to something. Somewhere.
I don't know what you're talking about. That sort of stuff doesn't happen on this show at all, ever.
We're all very serious business
Yes,
here.
this is serial business. So, all right, so we're going to get right into the topics because we have a couple of them, and we don't want to waste your time because we know how important it is. So, let's start with Karen Powell. Is that her name? Chairman Powell.
You had one job, Brian. It's Ellen Powell.
Is it? I don't know.
Yes, it's Ellen Powell.
They all sound the same to me.
Ka-PAO! Yeah, so you want me to read this?
Yes,
You
Rachel,
want me-
please
you want me
read
to-
us about Powell. The spicy Powell.
The Kung Pao chicken?
Yes, the
Okay.
Kung Pao.
Okay, yes. Last Friday, Reddit CEO Ellen Pao stepped down from her position following controversy over the firing of Victoria Taylor. Victoria Taylor had been a popular employee and a frequent liaison between volunteer moderators and Reddit. She was most frequently known for organizing AMA sessions with people ranging from the president to Snoop Dogg. As a result of her firing, moderators protested by shutting down entire boards in an action being called the Reddit Revolt. But this was not the first bit of controversy surrounding Ellen Pao. Many had complained over her decisions concerning everything from her updates to the Reddit harassment policy to her choice to shut down boards she deemed too offensive. Her overall attitude and actions concerning Reddit earned her the nickname Chairman Pao. With the firing of Victoria Taylor, Redditors had had enough, the culmination of which led to the CEO stepping down. But the drama didn't stop there, because several news sources claimed that this was evidence of rampant misogyny in Reddit culture, and that Pao was nothing more than a victim of the internet hate mob. While some are suggesting that the decision to fire Victoria Taylor wasn't Ellen Pao's, and was instead a decision made by Reddit co-founder Alexis Ohanian, who had other ideas about how AMAs should be run. Whatever the case, Reddit rebelled against Ellen Pao in a big way. Predictably, the media followed the narrative it always does when people have the audacity to disagree with a woman online, and Reddit has expressed that they have no plans to reinstate Victoria Taylor. Time will tell if Reddit will soon see normalcy once again, or if it will die a painful death at the hands of those running it.
So,
So,
Ellen Pao is gone.
Mm-hmm. Yep, gone.
but what about Karen Pao? She's still
Nobody
at large. She's still at large, people. You know, we still have to deal with Karen Pao. The reign of the Pao is not over.
Kevin
Maybe
Powell.
there's also a Susan Pao.
Mm.
You're just making up PAOs.
Yes, I'm making up PAOs.
Yes, but not
Yeah.
right to kiss her, because then we'd get sued for sexual harassment.
One day, Alice.
You know, I actually I ended up writing to Reddit admins about this, although it's probably a futile effort to do so. And I published the letter on Breaking the Glasses at breakingtheglasses.blogspot.com. It's the first thing on there right now. And it's the whole thing. I mean, they can attribute it to a lot of different things, but the reality is that that Reddit's administrators were entirely unprofessional and unethical, and they handled everything poorly. It not just the conflict they had with Victoria Taylor, but everything from dealing with criticism from social justice warriors, to communication with the moderators, to accepting communication from Reddit users, to just everything. And if they don't shape up, I really can't see that the site expanding the way they claim to want to expand it, because people aren't going to want to go there. People aren't going to want to use it. And I think they need to hear that message from the user base en masse, because even with the PAO gone, I really don't think they've gotten it. They're still talking about things as if the problem is just solved by her going. And I mean, if they don't really have plans on trying to bring back Victoria Taylor, then they're still not really listening to the community at all.
Rachel.
Sorry, the mute button. The thing that gets me is that they're still playing the tired old, oh my gosh, it's misogyny. The reason why they need to get rid of Ellen PAO is the reason why they're asking for her to leave is misogyny. That's why. It's not that maybe she's running the fucking company into the ground. No, it's misogyny. So they simply can't stand to see a woman in a position of authority, and that's why. And not because she's just really terrible at her job. And it's not that she was terrible at her last job, too. And she seems to lack professionalism all around. I don't.
Is that it?
No.
Yes.
I caught the curse of the mute button. Thank you, everybody else, finally. Something I was thinking about as all of this was unfolding, with the subreddits protesting and basically locking themselves down for the most part. The only thing I can think of in the back of my mind was, even with the petition reaching over 200,000 signatures, as I'm sitting here going, it couldn't have been that easy if it was just a matter of getting over 200,000 signatures. I'm thinking that perhaps something else might have been at play, because if the site runs on ad revenue, if you have over 300 subreddits closing themselves up and preventing people from adding content, I'm not entirely sure how locking it up might prevent views, but if it in any way affected ad revenue, is it possible that perhaps they had gotten that Reddit had gotten pressure from elsewhere to find some kind of solution, or make a scapegoat to get to finally say, okay, PAO is out. Oh, look, guys, we fixed the problem, and yeah, you can unlock your subreddits now.
Well, I know from having watched the men's rights Reddit go dark, and I know what their usual traffic is like. When they went dark, it halved the traffic, and I'm pretty sure that. Do you still see the advertisements when the thing goes dark? I don't think so.
No, you don't. You don't see anything but a screen that says this sub has gone private. Message the moderators to be allowed in the sub, and it does not actually tell you how to message the mods. So unless you're a regular Redditor and you actually know how to message the mods of a specific sub without being given a link on how to message them, you can't even do that.
I gotcha. It's yeah. So that's definitely it would have hit their ad revenue if a significant portion of their website goes dark. And it's funny because that's entirely within the moderator's control. So this site runs based on the moderators. That's definitely interesting. But otherwise, it's no longer viable. Hey guys, come on, let's not have these silences. Jump in here.
Well, from what I understand, and it's been a while since I've read this, but from what I understand, there is at least a time where Reddit was actually operating in the red anyway, that the advertising was not covering their expenses. It's part of the reason they pushed Reddit Gold so much. Which is funny because the MRAs that they shadow ban for being too men's rightsy usually are the ones that get awarded gold for their comments, and I got awarded gold for several comments very shortly before getting shadow banned for the most recent time. And I saw that with several other MRAs. So the admins kind of have a habit of shooting themselves in the foot financially anyway.
Yeah, I remember that. I somehow acquired Reddit Gold for something I said, and I know I'm probably not the. I doubt that if the admin even knew about me, I'm sure that they don't like me. I wouldn't be surprised.
See, I commit the sin of wandering outside of Reddit's men's rights subreddit. When I first engaged with Reddit, it was not with the men's rights subreddit. I was a fan of our no sleep. I'm sorry, and some other subs related to like nightmares and stuff like that, and scary stories and things that go bump in the night, and ran into men's rights for totally different reasons. And so I still posted in other areas and everything. And when I would run into chatter outside of men's rights that brought up men's rights issues, my responses were the same as they would have been inside the men's rights subreddit if those issues came up for discussion. So I would give facts and information and post links, which on Reddit, according to the Social Justice League on Reddit, there is a cardinal sin, and that they don't like that. So yeah, I ended up making myself a target more than once.
Yep. I'm wondering where Brian got. Oh, there you are.
I'm back. No, I was just going to jump in. We have a Cherry, and Cherry wants to talk.
I just received word that Cherry has a bit of an
Cherry is now
internet issue.
gone.
Yes, so
no longer has something to say.
We've lost our Cherry.
We have lost our virginity.
Our Cherry has been popped.
I got it first, Brian.
16 years after I had my kid to lose my virginity. That's a record there.
I hope she comes back.
I'm sure she will. She'll be
I
back.
understand that once you lose your Cherry, though, you don't get it back. But maybe in our case.
Actually, that's a lie.
That would be...
You can actually, some of the tissue can actually really go back.
Or if you're Aphrodite, you get it back every time you take a bath.
Yeah, exactly. Every time you go in the ocean.
All right. Well, that is useful information.
Not
So,
really useful.
I guess until she comes back, where did we leave off? I don't use Reddit, so I don't really know the politics of Reddit.
Somebody should explain sort of how Reddit works, because I still don't understand.
One thing I do know about Reddit, though, guys, is did you know that like BuzzFeed and like Upworthy, they get a lot of their shit from there?
No, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Reddit is like, oh, you know what, Hannah, you say, because I've only been on Reddit since like, I don't know, 2011 something.
Well, Reddit's basically a combination of social networking and social bookmarking. You can post either a link or a self-post where you write something and post it to a subreddit where it's topical. It fits the topic in the subreddit. So each area of Reddit has its own sort of theme. Like Reddit's Our Men's Rights is about men's issues, and Our Advice Animals is about advice animal memes, and so on. And there's all kinds. You could have a subreddit for anything. I think I went over this once before, and I used Our Fucking Butterflies as an example, and now there is one. But basically, you post something, and then people can comment under it and discuss your post. Sometimes the discussions will get off topic and everything. People will post links to information back and forth if they're debating something, and there are even subreddits dedicated specifically to debate. One, what's it called? Change My View or Change My Mind or something like that. And there are subreddits even specifically dedicated to gender issues debate. It's FEMRA or something
debates,
like that.
Although
Yeah,
it's
MRA debates. Yeah, FEMRA debates. Although that one's kind of gone feminist to the point of MRAs really can't say much of anything in there. And if your post is off topic, if you spam a subreddit, the moderators can actually delete your post and things like that. Some subs are more heavily moderated than others. The feminism subs have all kinds of rules about who can comment and what kind of comments you can write and what kind of posts you can make, and they will delete and ban, and they're pretty heavy on deleting and banning. And there are other subreddits that are more free speech oriented, less censorship oriented, and they won't censor unless you spam with something that is completely off topic, or you're in there trying to sell stuff that has nothing to benefit the people of that particular subreddit, the subscribers to that particular subreddit. As a Redditor, you can subscribe to different subreddits, and you can set it up so that if you open just Reddit by itself and don't go directly to a specific subreddit, your front page will be made up of the subreddits that you're subscribed to. If you don't subscribe to anything, your front page when you open up will be made up of whatever hits the top of Reddit's front page. So it's basically how it works. People can vote on the different posts and the different comments. You can get upvoted for things you said or downvoted for things you said. And there's common courtesy that surrounds that it's not supposed to be necessarily agreement or disagreement with what was said, but whether or not the comment contributes to the conversation. And sometimes people can sort of get the two confused. If they disagree with something, they don't think it contributes to the conversation. And then other times people feel they've been wrongfully downvoted when they say something that maybe has been said a million times, and they feel like they're the first person that's ever said it. So you get a little bit of argument over the voting, and there's quite a bit of rules that Reddit has imposed on the users related to voting for comments and posts and everything that have gotten to the point where basically you can get in trouble for voicing your opinion on Reddit by voting on comments. Just by voting on comments. If you vote for something that you learned about because a link to it was posted in another sub, they consider that vote brigading, even if you have a valid opinion, a valid reason for being there, if you're a regular in the sub that they link to, and so on. In fact, their excuse for the last round of MRA shadow bans was an Ask Me Anything, I believe it was with Warren Farrell, that had been arranged by the men's rights moderators and some of the men's rights subscribers, was done, I believe, on the Ask Me Anything sub. I was at work for this whole thing, so I didn't get to participate in it. But then all of the MRAs that participated in the discussion, that commented and voted, got shadow banned for participating in a discussion outside of the men's rights subreddit, because apparently the fact that they arranged for the discussion to happen didn't justify their participation in it. And for the person in the chat who asked what subreddits are, when Reddit first started, there used to be just Reddit. The site, it was just its front page, and you posted things, and they got voted or downvoted, and people found them interesting or didn't. And they allowed people to start making subreddits which were topical. So there was Reddit, and then there was a subreddit which was its own little section. So you didn't see the rest of Reddit in there. You just see what's in that subreddit. And like I said, there's men's rights, there's Ask Me Anything, there's our relationships. and so on. A lot of the subreddits for words that start with R leave the R off the name because it's the address is Reddit/r/name of subreddit. And yeah, L. Ross says Reddit is lame, vote.co for the win. A lot of people are sort of doing both now, and a lot of people are talking about switching because of the censorship, the heavy censorship that's going on now on Reddit. But I think I've pretty much covered the basis on how Reddit works and what some of the problems with it, how it works are. The things that have got people generally upset, the set of things that have got people generally upset with this, the first thing that I saw people getting upset with actually was more than a year ago, well more than a year ago. Moderators began to complain that administrators were not communicating with them related to just the function of the site. Like things they would do an update, or things would change, or there would be a technical problem or a technical issue or a rule change, and the moderators could not get the information about it that they needed from the administrators. And there were different things they did to sort of try to remedy that. They have a subreddit for the bigger subreddit moderators to talk, and there are IRC chats and everything that they can talk back and forth in, but there's still a shortage of good communication back and forth between the moderators and the administrators, which in and of itself is a really big problem, because basically the administrators of Reddit are depending on free labor from subreddit moderators. They don't generally get paid for what they do. And so it's to sort of crap on them like that is really bad form and bad business, because it's really discouraging as far as getting people to help you with a site like that. And it's the type of thing that can be the death of a website if you treat your volunteers like dirt under your feet. And so that was one of the problems. The censorship issue also started at about the same time. Although there were issues with it previously, there was a big fight. Oh gosh, it's been like 3 or 4 years ago. It was before my Onero's grip account. When I think the subscribers of Reddit's feminist subreddits objected to the existence of a subreddit for men's rights. And there were all kinds of things that went along with that fight. And it would take a whole show to just go over that, and I'm not going to do that. But the short of it was, they basically petitioned to have the subreddit banned, and it was. And so then there was a petition to have it reinstated, and a big discussion. I was part of that discussion under the name Fay Willow. Which that account was shadow banned shortly after that, but it was reinstated. But there was a great deal of conflict between men's rights and the feminist subreddits following that, and you saw that with several other issues. The doxing of Violent Acres, which happened a couple of years ago, and that all was fallout from social justice efforts on the site. And it involved Gawker. There's a write-up of that on A Voice for Men. I think it's titled Fusk You SRS. So there was quite a bit of censorship going on over the years, and it has increased steadily since its onset, and it has been geared around enforcing social justice related sensibilities, and so,
yeah.
No, I'm just noticing in the chat people talking about getting placated by SRS. I should probably explain what SRS is. SRS is shit Reddit says. It's a subreddit dedicated to basically bad-mouthing everybody on Reddit by taking examples of comments, whether people are trolling or serious, treating them as serious comments, and using them as evidence that Redditors are a bunch of angry, woman-hating bigots. And they have a habit of going in and brigading different subs and making a bunch of nasty comments and downvoting people into oblivion, and then once they get material for their sub, then they go back and they'll even start reporting people for things that they've said, and they'll start fights and then report people for harassing them, for answering them, things like that. They're quite an interesting group of people, and they initiated a basically an attack on a lot of the porn subreddits a few years ago, and that was the whole Violent Acres controversy was wrapped up in that. So I think I've gotten pretty much through the whole, how Reddit works, a lot of what's going on with Reddit, and what basically is the conflict between Redditors and the administrators is that we would like to see some transparency in their operation, that we know what's going on with them. They really have a bad habit of using unwritten rules to ban people. So they'll have a rule that says no vote manipulation, but they won't tell you what vote manipulation is. And then anytime they want to ban somebody, they'll say it was for vote manipulation, and you don't know exactly the behavior that is considered. So we want to see some transparency. We want to see fair treatment of all of the employees, of their volunteers, and of their consumers. And those are not really difficult requests to fulfill. It'd be really easy for them to simply set up a list of rules that is easy to understand, and enforce them evenly, so that they're not giving somebody a pass because of their ideology, and they're not coming down on somebody else because of their ideology, but actually following a set of rules, and communicate with their moderators. And when they make changes to the community, they make changes to the rules, whatever they're doing at the time, to communicate with the rest of us. It's really not that hard to do. So that's basically the situation with Reddit Revolt.
All right. Well, thanks, Anna. I've just been educated on Reddit. I had no idea. Anna Cherry, you have joined us. You have a comment about the Ellen Pao situation? Pao? Oh, no. Do you have sound? Cherry? Cherry? Apparently, we don't have any sound coming from Anna's end. I'm sorry.
Not again.
What was that?
Said not again.
I know. I'm sorry, Anna. I don't know what's going on, but if you can come back, I'll certainly give you the floor as soon as you do.
I think it's just she's been messaging me saying that she's having computer problems, and I know that she was trying to get on with her phone, but unfortunately I don't think it's working.
That's all right.
It's always a fight with the equipment here.
Yeah, that's where we are experiencing growing pains, but we're still small
No,
potatoes.
this has always been a problem.
This is a thing.
The format is,
I think it's my internet.
There you are.
I'm here. I think it's my internet. Comcast has been a total. I don't have enough profanities to describe Comcast right now. But I'm back. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cherry has joined us.
I wish I could find
the internet ground.
I wish I could find the actual link, because I feel like I'm without having an actual basis to talk about this, I feel like I might be slinging around rumors, but I'm pretty sure I saw this, and I can't find the link. But there was one of the male workers of Reddit was talking about the fact that we, as a community, asked Ellen Pao to resign and let him stay. It was evidence of male privilege. And it was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen, because how is he ignoring the fact that she was the CEO as a woman, and that's what makes her powerful, and his male privilege is basically us not giving a shit about who he is or what he does. So that just completely blew my mind, and I wish I could find the link to it, but yeah, I think it was related to a Kotaku article.
I think it was Sam Altman.
Yes, that is just insanity.
Well, I can speak to that. Looks like we got some echo going on. Just a second. Oh yeah, there we go. A little bit anyway. Yeah, she is the CEO. The buck stops with Ellen Pao, and if you can't handle the fact that a woman, when the buck stops with a woman, she's sacrificed, because she's supposed. That's what a CEO is for. You know, if something's wrong with a company, it's their fault. The end. You kick them to the curb. And this applies for women as well as men. And if you don't want to be in that position of taking full responsibility, even if it isn't your problem, it always is your problem when you're the leader, then don't become a leader. The end. Anyway.
Otter does this.
Well, and they're only using misogyny to describe Pao's firing, but they don't feel that way about Victoria Taylor's firing. Like, it's only misogyny if it's a woman that feminists will identify with and that feminists approved of. If you come down on a feminist disapproved woman or a woman that's not defended by feminists, that's not misogyny. So Redditors apparently objecting to Pao's firing of Victoria Taylor is misogyny, even though it's woman against woman, because Pao is approved.
And they won't say why they fired her. They won't actually come out on the record and say why they fired her. There's some speculation on the part of some people that maybe it was done by one of the Reddit's co-founders, because he wanted these AMAs, these Ask Me Anythings, to go in a different direction, but we honestly have no idea.
Yeah, there was a Chan post that the person doing the posting claimed to be an insider, but there's really no way of verifying that. But he went through and said a bunch of things about the whole situation that they made quite a bit of sense, and it did sound like it sounded like Taylor was basically fired for not doing something that she felt was unethical. But it's not something that is provable. It's something that somebody who claimed to be an insider said on a site where you can't really confirm who they were.
Otter Jesus, do you want to make a quick comment?
I remember seeing this one article. I'm sorry for laughing while trying to say that, but I remember seeing this one article where it was like there was a picture of her. She was like in the background against the wall, just sitting there, and there was like a guy to the side, and there was like I think a woman, and there maybe was another guy or something who are working on computers, but she's just sitting there, and that's the photo they go with to talk about how she's a female CEO or whatever, and it's like she looks like she's not even doing anything. She looks like she's just sitting there, just to be there. And it's like that. Yeah, that sounds like exactly what she's been doing the whole time, just sitting there.
Well, she's probably trying to get reservations at Dorsia.
Yeah. Anyways, that was my comment.
American Psycho reference. Panina, did you want to say anything before we move on?
Well, what I was going to say was probably the reason why they're not toting the misogyny for Victoria versus why they are for Pao is because it is assumed or presumed or however you want to put it that because Victoria was fired by Pao, that girl-on-girl firing is okay and cannot be misogynistic, but the Reddit community coming up against Pao because, white cisgendered neckbeard shitlords, asking for her head on a silver platter for firing Victoria and other unethical behaviors. Oh no, that's misogyny.
Oh, that's an interesting point.
I liked oppressive straight white male Christian's comment. You were only supposed to sacrifice women who are virgins.
To various large sea creatures.
Yeah, but it's funny because we don't know anything about Victoria, whatever, but we know about Pao.
Yeah, Pao's all over the place.
Yep.
I wanted to, before we move on to the next topic, I wanted to give a quick mention. There has been some recent events that have occurred. We don't want to speak directly to them because it's too soon or too fresh, but if it turns out to be something that we want to discuss on the show, we will do it in a future show. But in the meantime, essentially, you may know something about Airplay, and they were trying to bring Gamergate, members, like prominent figures. on for whatever reason, and that fell through, or at least there's definitely stuff that's going on right now. If you want to know more about that, I've already put in the low bar a link to a piece written by representatives of Airplay, as well as Oliver Campbell, who was one of the people that was invited on. He made a stream in response to it. So we're not going to talk directly to that because we didn't want to do it without having Oliver on to say his side, because we don't want to speculate and like add to any potential drama. So you guys check it out in the low bar, read the piece, watch the stream, and we may follow up at a future time. But in the meantime, you can make up your own mind about what you think is going on.
I want to say really quick though that it's not as bad as everyone thought it was originally when something went up, and yeah, it's not that bad.
Yeah, I don't think it is either. I just think it's fresh.
I just don't want people to be worrying about it if when they're hearing this and going, "Oh, I haven't heard about it," and they go look. Like, just it's not as bad as it sounds.
Yeah, we don't want to. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. So, Penina, you have a piece that you wrote up, and we'd like to discuss that. We're going to move on to the next story.
Okay. I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as possible. So many ideas and not enough paper to write it all down on. So, here we go. A Tale of Sunsets and Five Nights. Our tale begins with Sunset, a game developed by Tale of Tales that follows the day-to-day work of Angela Burns, a housekeeper of a wealthy man, Gabriel Ortega, in Central America. As a housekeeper, Angela is tasked with completing a list of chores 1 hour prior to sunset, all while a civil war rages on outside. As an exploratory game, the premise of Sunset is to find out more information about the war that is going on outside of the house. As time passes, changes both inside and out of the house are shown to players in order to imply the progress and effects of the war. So why would a game that is said to be revolutionary and thought-provoking result in being a commercial failure? First, we must understand that video games are a product whose value is based in the form of entertainment. While this does not mean that entertainment alone cannot or is not intellectual or thought-provoking, it does mean that entertainment value is completely subjective, based on the individual consumer and initiated with an emotional response. Piquing a consumer's interest in your product depends completely on creating the sense of wanting. With that said, I'm for some reasons out of breath. With that said, factors that can influence the consumption of video games as entertainment are stories, player immersion, and having a clear objective to complete. Other factors may include advertisement, word of mouth and reviews, and the reputation of the publisher and developer. While Sunset is said to have an interesting and intellectual premise, attempting to engage players in Angela's story, Sunset falls short in keeping players immersed, taking the route of telling the story rather than showing it. Sunset also seems to lack a clear and cohesive climax to its story and an objective to complete in the game, removing the element that defines a video game with the human interactiveness and feedback. If there is little to no feedback, it's hardly worth calling a video game. In addition to story pacing concerns, game reviewers of Sunset have also noted their disappointment at the game's limited character mobility, camera angle issues, frame rates, and optimization issues. While Sunset failed to sell more than approximately 4,000 copies, some of which were for Kickstarter backers, the response from Tale of Tales developers unfortunately pins the blame on gamers for their failure of not attracting consumers to their product. As the saying goes, you can catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. How does Sunset failure compare then to another indie game, for example, Five Nights at Freddy's? Five Nights at Freddy's centers around a fictional family pizzeria where the player acts as the night security guard and must defend themselves throughout their shift for 5 nights from the murderous animatronics that roam the halls of the restaurant. Chuck E. Cheese meets Freddy Krueger. The player tracks the movements of the animatronics using the security cameras and, when necessary, closes the electronic doors to keep them from getting into the security office, where the player cannot leave. What's the catch, and why is this interesting? Tracking the animatronics through the camera and closing the doors consumes precious limited power from the restaurant's building. If the player's power reaches 0 before the end of their shift, the lights go out, the doors will open, and the player is left vulnerable. So what does Five Nights do better than that has ultimately led to its success? For one, Five Nights, categorized as a survival horror, invokes an emotional response from players, creating a sense of fear, panic, and a level of urgency to balance their limited resources within a constricted space. Failing to do so results in death or game over. Another reason Five Nights is so successful is how the developer, Scott Cawthons, interacts with the gaming community. Five Nights does a wonderful job of giving just enough information to keep the players entertained without telling them what's going on. Scott is notorious for releasing teaser images and information on his website when new information is available. But it's the hidden messages within these teaser images or within the HTML and CSS codes of his website that attracts the attention of the community, tantalizing theory crafters and generating hype with new possibilities, story elements, and things to look forward to. This kind of developer-consumer relations is not one we see very often. It is refreshing to know a developer loves the community enough to whet their appetite on a consistent basis. Comparing Sunset to Five Nights at Freddy's may be like comparing apples to oranges. Both have different qualities that attract different sorts of consumers for a variety of reasons. It's important, though, to recognize what makes these apples and oranges good and prevent bad apples from spoiling the bunch. Discuss.
Okay. Well, thank you for that really insightful piece, Penina. The one thing I wanted to say is, well, I think it's really obvious, like, why these things are, one is more successful than the other, and it basically comes down to the fact that when you play Five Nights at Freddy's, you are at the very least given the illusion that you have control over what happens to you, and you can, like, make decisions. Like you said in the first sentence, you know, the point is that you have to survive, or you have to navigate, you know, this setting, basically this scary environment. While the other game, which is called Sunset, apparently doesn't have any consequences or perceived consequences. It reminds me of Gone Home in a lot of ways, where you can do things at your own pace. There's really no, you know, you're basically just unfolding a narrative. If they're in it, but it's not even a clear one, and that's a really surefire way of losing interest of the player that's interacting. So, yeah, I mean, Five Nights is just, you know, it's a game. That's how they're different. Otter Jesus.
I remember reading articles about Sunset, and there's this other game where it was like you were trying, I can't remember what it was called, but it was like Her Story, I think, where there was like security cam footage and you were trying to figure something out. But there was this one article I was reading about it, and it was an article that blamed gamers for the lack of art games, whatever that means. And the person just was basically talking about art films, but saying that that's what art games were, completely just ignoring the entire concept of video games. And there's a whole discussion that can be had about this, and you guys have had a debate on here before about what makes games art or are games art or whatever. And there's just this massive misunderstanding about how a video game is art. And it's not if it looks pretty or if it's like has an interesting story or does something blah blah blah. It's how it interacts with you. The art form of gameplay is the art form of video games is gameplay. The way you interact with a game is the art, and so many people have a hard time understanding that because it's so different and unusual from all other art forms. All other art forms is how you react to it. A video game is how it reacts to you. And if a video game is basically just you walking around, you like steering a character around, and then things will pop up and you'll read them and whatever. That's not a game. That's an interactive art piece, I guess. Unless it's like just absolute garbage, then it's just garbage. But even then, it's like you have to decide what makes art, and then you have to go like, is art subjective? And then that gets really weird.
Well, really quick to speak to what you're saying, art can be shit and
Yeah.
still be art. Like you can have bad art, that can exist. So someone can make an attempt at a painting or a drawing, and it's just not good. It doesn't provoke anything in anyone. It might just disgust people. It might be completely subjective, but it can be bad at what it does. And so games can be bad in that regard as well.
Then there's the issue of if you go to the point where the game is not about your artwork is not about what you're doing, but what you want to tell people, then it starts turning into propaganda.
Right.
And that's when it becomes dangerous, and that's what people do not want. That's what Gamergate, when they talk about not having politics in video games, we, at least for a lot of the people that I've talked with about, we don't want propaganda. If you're going to put politics in, but don't end up going, well, I have these politics in it, so it's good. Because if you're pushing that, then most likely it's propaganda. And then there's just the straight propaganda where people are just like, yeah, I'm making this to send a message. That's like, why? Don't do that. No, just go away. So, yeah, it's like, I guess I'm sure we don't have a lot of time to continue talking about this tangent I'm going on. But, yeah, it's like art in games, just so many people don't understand it or don't care to really understand it, and then they just get into fights.
Well, yeah, to bring together what Otter and Penina were saying, that's actually kind of where I'm coming from too, that I think Penny really hit on something there, that the difference between, and kind of where Gamergate stepped in also, I think the difference is, on one hand, you have developers like at Five Nights where they care about the game. The game is their baby. And not only is the game their baby, but it is a game for the community. Kind of brings Iwata also into this, that there are certain developers, you can tell they have made a piece of art that they are very proud of, and they also want to show it to the community, and they want to show it off, and they want the community to love it, and they want it to be a communal thing between the developer and the people, the players. But what we see a lot of times from the social control warriors is the games they make, the indie game devs, in that regard, they create a game to bludgeon people over the head with. It is not, it might be their baby the same way, in somewhat the same way, but it is definitely not a communal project. It is not something that they want to release into the community and see how people play with it and what interactions arise. They instead want to bludgeon people over the head with their ideology and with what people should think, what they should like, and what they should do. And that is where it all breaks, and I think that's where Gamergate also came in, that we want to make a distinction between the people who create games that don't rely on players' input or interaction, and in fact they block any kind of player input or interaction or any of that, and they tell them what they should do and tell them what they should think. Those are the games that we don't want to play. It's not the same. It's not a game anymore. It's a lecture. And so I think that Penina really hit on a very central sticking point that differentiates games that people love to play versus games that are not so good, and where Gamergate comes in as well. In some regards, obviously, a lot of it is about ethics and journalism, but there's a big overlap between censorship and allowing authors to create what they want to create, and us as players, we want the first type, the type where we can have it as a communal experience.
Okay, Penina?
Yes, it really, it comes down to attitude from the developer. You have Tale of Tales, which I believe is only 2 members, husband and wife, last time I looked, I believe. And then you have Scott Cawthon. It's just him. And Cawthon, basically, he's made other games prior to Five Nights at Freddy's. He is a devout Christian. He has used his teachings, and he has not necessarily pushed them into his games, but there are, if you look at some of the content of his previous games, you can see where his values are and what he's trying to, not necessarily teach, but what he's trying to show of what he knows in his games. And one of his last games before he started the Five Nights at Freddy's series was Chipper and Son Lumber Company. It's basically just a kiddie game to help teach how to gather and maintain resources, how to make stuff out of those resources, and giving out of the, helping other people with those resources, and that they'll help you back. The criticism that he had received for that game was the characters look too animatronic-like. So, and unfortunately, that was a blow to him. That sent him into a state of depression. But rather than blaming gamers, and rather than just eating the criticism, he took it and made it into his greatest strength. If they look like animatronics, let me do something with them that makes them animatronics-like. And then we got Five Nights at Freddy's 1. And here we are, a year later, he just released a teaser trailer for the 4th installment, so 4 games in less than a year. Not to mention selling the movie rights to Warner Brothers Studios for a full-length feature film. Are you freaking kidding me? This guy knows how to cater to the community. As I had mentioned in my write-up, he likes to tease. He likes to, even from game 1, he had been placing little Easter eggs and little tidbits of information to give you just enough of the story to have an idea, but not enough to tell the full story, leaving it up to the community to create the lore and to theorize and to come up with their own stories. We have people that make creepypastas and fan fictions and fan art and fan music. Nate Wants to Do Battle is one of my favorites for that. And you have people that enjoy playing it, such as PewDiePie, Markiplier, Achievement Hunters, Smike, 8-Bit Gaming. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to, but I watch these guys because I like seeing their theories and I like coming up with my own theories as well. And when I saw the teaser trailer last night, I'm going, holy shit! Are you freaking kidding me? And you can see the evolution process. And he could not have done this without the community, but at the same time, the community could not be there without him, without his attitude, without his love for his passion. And as I said, taking the criticisms that he received and turning it into a strength. What I was trying to liken what was going on with Sunset and why it doesn't necessarily fit into the criteria of games is because you're trying to, or I should say they're trying to give you a story, give you a narrative that doesn't necessarily fit. If you remove the feedback or the ability to interact with the environment, like Otter was saying, it's not a game. You might as well just put words scrolling up on a theater screen and call it a movie. That's not a movie, it's just a moving novel. You're just reading scrolling text on a screen. It's not a movie.
Are you done?
Yeah, I'm
Oh, it's all right. The one thing I wanted to mention before we move on to the next topic is when it reminds me of during World War II or before right around World War II, Hitler had something that he called a degenerate art exhibition, and in it he was looking to return to a time where art only existed to tell a very specific message. So the art was very clear in its narrative. He considered it to be real art, and anything that was interpretive, anything that people could look at and take different things away from, he deemed as unworthy and wanted to destroy it all. And this, not that I'm trying to like make this equivalent, but it reminds me of that, because the reason why I bring that up is because video games, when you interact with them, when you're playing a good one, all right, generally you are not going to walk away with a fixed opinion on a given issue. You're just going to walk away with the experience that the game gave you. It's basically like the game is put out there, and then what you do with it is entirely up to you. For example, some people might only play the multiplayer. Some people might only play the story. Some people might never finish it, and they just dick around in like the open world if it has one. They basically do whatever they want with it within the restrictions of the game itself, and what determines whether or not it's good for them is if it basically fulfills, that whatever it is people are looking to get out of it. Like I like to play fighting games, so when I play them, I want to get as good as I can. I try to learn all of the minutia and all the combos and everything. But some other people might only just want to like mess around on it, and some people, they just like to look at the graphics, whatever it is. With the reason why this is, I'm pointing this out is art that exists, and I think of games as art, all of them in general. Art that exists to basically be whatever it is you think they are to you, and they're not trying to force a message down your throat. That's what art is. It's something that is just sort of like open-ended. You can take from it what you want. Hieronymus Bosch is one of my favorite painters. I know that his paintings are religious, but I don't think of myself as religious. I just like the artwork, so I just enjoy it for what it is. But when something is made and it only exists to tell you something very specific, it's not art anymore, it's propaganda. It basically is trying to give you a message, it's spoon-feeding you something, and that's what a lot of these social justice video games do. They don't actually have, most of the time, they don't actually have a lot of gameplay, and they're really trying to tell you something very, very specific. And the worst part is, this is how you know that this is the case, because sometimes people are trying to do the former and they just don't pull it off very well, and then that's fine. That happens sometimes. But this is how you know that that's the case. With Sunset, or even with like Revolution 60, or some of the other games coming from these people, when they fail, those people blame the community. They blame gamers. They say that gamers are not smart enough, or they're not empathic enough, or they're not worthy of these titles because they don't see the beauty in the message that's being told to them. This is how come the whole Gone Home and Depression Quest thing turned into a kerfuffle, because when those games failed or they were criticized, people were like, well, you're just terrible people because you don't get it. When the point is, you don't make games and then shame people because they don't like it. You have to try to make a better game. If this is the market, you're in service of your customers, or you just suck it up and you move on. And that's all I wanted to say about that.
I just wanted to follow up really quick on that, Brian. For the social justice developers, they are the ones that are not smart enough to think that gamers are intelligent to make up their own minds about what the gamers want, what they personally want. We are not a collective. We are individuals who have our own tastes. What games do, what good games do, is your experience will never or should never be the same as my experience with a game. We might have similar ideas, we might have similar takeaways, but they will never be the same, and they should never be the same as any other gamers, as anyone else's. And that's what real thought provocation is. The communication between gamers on what we engage in. The conversation is not between on thought provocation is not between the developer and gamers. It's between gamer and gamer. Yeah. And that's why the community for Five Nights at Freddy's is so strong. Scott already has an idea in his head of where he wants the story to go. What makes it fun is everybody else trying to figure out what his story is, and the theories, and going from point A to point B when you don't have when you don't have the middle pieces, and that's the part that I think is more important, is having the conversations with other gamers. The social justice warrior developers can cry all they want. It just means that they are not smart enough to understand that we know what we want, because we've been here longer, we engage in the activity, we know what we like, and we see bullshit where it is.
I wanted to add something to that. What's interesting about the game's medium is that well, first of all, talk about propaganda. Propaganda is about controlling people's choices and compelling them to make one choice. Games are about inviting choice. So by their very nature, they're anti-propaganda, and the people who play them are going to be quite resistant to reducing their choices or demanding a particular choice out of them, because they are attracted to games because of the increase in choices that games give. So, as again, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised this cultural revolution is coming from gamers, and it's not going to stop because we are all eventually going to be gamers. I mean, do you realize that media, TV, every other medium, all the people who try to exert control through propaganda through those mediums, you realize that there is going to come a time that there is no one who doesn't game, who doesn't communicate through gaming and through the language that gaming uses. And then what are you going to do? You're going to be obsolete. The end.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out one thing. Product creators of all kinds, product creators using complaints about consumers to shame people into buying their product is a scam so old there's a fable written about it. I've been referencing it in our little chat. The Emperor's New Clothes was basically about that very type of scam. The idea that you can shame people into shelling out for something inferior or for nothing at all by making them feel like if they don't believe in it and they don't like it, they're inferior. That scam is ancient, and for us to keep falling for it and falling for it and falling for it as a community would be ridiculous. And yet scam artists continue to try to push it on people. And basically, if somebody is saying you're not liking my game because you're not smart enough to enjoy it, it's really no different than saying only intelligent people can see the fabric that the Emperor's clothes are made of.
Yeah. All right, so do you guys want to talk about Iwata? I think this is a good segue. Speaking of this whole thing about choice and all that. I'm gonna take that as a yes.
Yes. I have a sorry, damn mute button. I have a write up. I have a write up.
Rachel, do it.
Yes. Just do it. Okay.
Just do it.
Okay. Nintendo CEO Satoru Iwata has died last Saturday at the age of 55. Iwata was the first Nintendo CEO who wasn't a member of the Yamaguchi family, who started the company in 1889, and the first who understood video games and game development. As a programmer, he worked for HAL Laboratory, a company that often collaborated with Nintendo, as its coordinator of software production. Some of his notable works from that time were Balloon Fight, Earthbound, and the Kirby games. He assisted in the founding of Creatures Inc., a company that would eventually join Nintendo and create the Pokemon franchise. In 2000, Iwata took a position at Nintendo as the head of its corporate planning division, and he succeeded President Hiroshi Yamaguchi when he retired in 2001. Satoru Iwata was a different kind of CEO, who stepped forward as a public face for the company and understood gaming for what it was, something rare in the tech industry. His willingness to engage with gamers and understanding of the culture helped Nintendo take an upward turn in 2006 with its release of the Wii console. He always fought to make games that were first and foremost fun. He made himself available to the public, going so far as to answer questions over social media. He was a gaming CEO who was a game developer, and a friend of gamers everywhere. Rest in peace, Iwata-san. You'll be sorely missed.
Sayonara.
Otter Jesus, do you want to say a few words as our local spiritual guide and savior about Iwata?
Well, as far as I know, I'm the one person here who grew up on Nintendo and still has Nintendo stuff. Is that true?
Nope.
You still
Nope.
You're not the only person who grew up on Nintendo. Everybody did.
I have my 8-bit Super NES and GameCube.
I'm the only person who didn't grow up on Nintendo, actually.
Okay, Otter Jesus?
What I mean by growing up on Nintendo is that I've like always stayed with Nintendo. There's a lot of people who grew up on Nintendo but then moved on to other stuff as they got older.
Oh yeah, I did.
It's like I have a Wii U. I had the Wii. I had the GameCube. I had the Nintendo 64. I had the Super Nintendo. I had Game Boy Color. I had the Game Boy Advance, and blah 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 blah.
But Otter, I have those things too.
Okay, well, I was just asking to see if I was the only one. I wasn't saying I was necessarily, but
No, you were
we
posturing over our geek cred, weren't you?
yes, I was.
You're trying to exclude us women because we're not real geeks. You don't think we're real geeks.
Yeah, that's what no. I just wanted to see if there was somebody else here. Anyways, but yeah, I grew up on Nintendo. My grandma bought me Super Nintendo and then an N64 and Game Boy Color, and she later regretted it because she's like, "You guys are into video games. That's bad." No, she didn't think they were bad. She's just like, "You guys play video games too much. You should go outside." Anyways, but yeah, I just love Nintendo and their philosophy. And when Iwata took over, he really tried to, especially with the Wii, the whole point of the Wii was to open up video games to everyone. I got into an argument on Twitter the other day about how there was this article on Deadline.com where it tried to make a claim that Iwata, part of his legacy was that he reached out to women and young children who played games, and that didn't even make any sense to me because their whole strategy with the Wii and even the DS was trying to make video games something that the entire family could enjoy, not just the kids, not just like one person in the family, but open it up to everyone. The Wii made it accessible to even the elderly, and like there's old stories about old people at elderly homes or whatever playing doing bowling or tennis, and it was actually helping them, like literally helping them, not just like making them feel nice, but it was actually improving their health in ways. And they were just trying to open up video games because it's always been very much it's only just for gamers. And it was making it accessible. My mom actually played Wii Sports, and she's like, "Oh, this looks fun." And then she wanted a Nintendo DS because she thought it looked fun. And there's the whole thing about the buttons. When you use your hands, when you're playing a video game, you're using your hands and you're pressing buttons, and that's kind of it makes people be like, "Oh, I don't know, that seems too focused on just pressing buttons." And moving your arm or something to play a video game makes it more interesting to people who just wouldn't normally just want to sit there pressing buttons. And that was Iwata's legacy. And I wanted to just say that because I think that's a really amazing legacy. And it actually worked. The Wii sold a lot. It didn't necessarily make everyone who played it into a hardcore gamer, but it made people actually pay attention, like parents and stuff to actually pay attention to video games, and even the mainstream to pay attention to the video games. Because before, it was just like, oh, video games are just for those creepy boys, but now it's like, oh, a lot of women have DSs, and they're playing DSs and they're using and Nintendo, like, admittedly they actually did use a lot of women in advertising towards women with the DS, but it opened up everything. And there's I always felt like there was this issue of how there's this generation of gamers, and it's really making it harder to focus on doing other things, because like a lot of companies are like, you have to focus on just these people who are gamers, and it's not necessarily a bad thing to focus on that, but there's nothing wrong with opening up gaming and trying to pull in other people and make them a new generation of gamers, even if they're old people, even or whatever. But yeah, he just seemed like a really smart guy who really cared about video games and wanted everyone to have fun, and that's his legacy.
Even if they're old people.
Yes, even the old people. And it's part
I
of
mean, we're not supposed to grind them down and eat them. This Soylent Green.
But it's part of, I think a lot of it has to do with Japanese culture, and that there's a lot of focus on family and how family is important and stuff. So I don't know, but those are my thoughts. Yeah.
Panina, go ahead.
Whatever it was that Nintendo did, I mean, I know that we know what Nintendo did, but Nintendo did something right. They came out from the 80s going into the early 90s being a very strong concept, very strong console, having outlasted like the Condor and the Magnavox and the Atari and all that other stuff. Coming now into Super Nintendo, N64, and they had a lot of good-natured family unity type games. It's a Japanese virtue for having unity and having loyalty, especially to one's family and just being together. What Nintendo continuously did, even with the immersion of Sony and Microsoft going at it to compete with each other on hardware specs and outputting, high graphical kind of games, Nintendo focused on fulfilling the void that competition kind of created. I don't necessarily agree, or at least I never saw it that way, that Nintendo kind of focused on women or trying to get women in gaming. I never saw it that way. I always saw it, and I always thought that what Nintendo was trying to do coming into the later generations with the GameCube, Wii, and Wii U was that they were trying to bridge older generations and newer generations, and basically it reinforcing that family unity, something that older generations can play. And it was evident when you saw the Wii market having the older console games on the Virtualware console, as well as some of the GameCube titles, and being able to play GameCube games backwards compatibility. Not saying that Sony or Xbox didn't do that, but because Nintendo had been around for so long, they were able to incorporate so much more from things that no longer existed and people could only do if they were savvy enough to have their computers emulate those kind of programs. They were the first ones to really have a strong handheld for gaming on the go. The Game Boy, the Game Boy Color and Advance, moving on to the DS, which finally Sony said, okay, we're going to have to start making our own kind of portable gaming console because Nintendo is fulfilling this niche, but we got to make our own games and have it tie back to our console so that we can have more people do that. So Nintendo, I don't think intended to ever compete on that level because they saw virtue in the things that they did. They saw what
Yeah.
They wanted to they had a goal in mind and they stuck to it.
I can actually speak to this. When I was doing research for this write-up, one of the things that came up is that um, Nintendo, and I'm not going to be long. Nintendo, when Iwata came on, it was not doing so hot. The GameCube was not nearly as popular as they had anticipated. They didn't really know where they were going. They really wanted to compete with Sony, and they could have gone in any number of directions. But Iwata saw the personality of the company, and he saw those things that in his mind made Nintendo great, because he had worked in this company. He had had his hands in a lot of the different games that we really love today, and he'd been working as a programmer for a very long time. He'd been working. At first, it was a company, like I said, it was HAL Laboratories, or no, sorry, or was it? Is that what it was
HAL
called?
Laboratories.
Yeah, HAL Laboratories, who worked with Nintendo as sort of. They would collaborate with them on a regular basis, but he had been a programmer, a developer, even back then when they were developing Kirby for the first time, and all of these different. He'd had his hands in gaming for so long, he knew exactly what needed to happen, and so he just continued on, and he fought tooth and nail. And when things weren't doing so great, he went so far as to give himself a deduction in salary to try and fund these projects that he felt would keep Nintendo up there where it needed to be. So I just wanted to put that in.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I was going to say is that what Nintendo did with the Wii was really smart, and this has already been said. But basically, while the other two giants, Microsoft and Sony, were competing with each other to try to corner the mainstream gamer market, Nintendo was looking to get a new market. And one of the great side effects of that is that why the Wii was actually the fastest selling console. Even though I own a GameCube, I like the GameCube, but I know why it didn't succeed, because it was trying to compete directly with Sony and Microsoft. But what the Wii did was, most people who were in a family that had like one or two hardcore gamers and a bunch of like regular family members, they often bought themselves one of the newer consoles by Sony or Microsoft and a Wii. And the Wii didn't cost that much. It was only like $250 when it came out, $250. So it was really not a big deal. So you had a thing where they didn't need to compete with them. They just had to provide something that the others didn't. So they had like the innovative control scheme, and they had a lower price point. They didn't focus on graphics, and they didn't have to worry about ports, because people who wanted to play the games that were available on the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox were just going to get it on there. And Nintendo had its own titles that were legacy titles, like Zelda and Mario and Kirby and Smash Brothers and Punch Out and whatever, and they could just focus on that. So it was really smart business sense on their part. Otter Jesus?
Yeah, I just wanted to. I don't even remember what I was going to say. I really feel like Nintendo, as a company, especially under Iwata, was really a very consumer concerned business. They're the only company, especially now, and under Iwata, that made a console that was actually a game development studio and a video game company just in general. Like, they only make consoles. Sony is an electronics company. Microsoft is a computer company. And they do make games and stuff, but they have studios and stuff that they've bought up over time. Nintendo was always making games. Even like Sega technically was an electronics company, I think, too. Like, they made TVs or something. But they'd always been in the business of like making games, sort of like Nintendo started out as a card, I can't remember, something about cards, but playing cards company. But yeah, they've just always really been focused on consumers, and with the Wii, and even with, I guess, the GameCube and all their consoles except the Wii U, they've always made a profit on the console from the start, and they did that in a way to where the console was somehow the cheapest, but they were also making money off of it, and they wanted it to be inexpensive because they wanted consumers to be able to afford it. Like they didn't want something like the PlayStation 3 that was like $1 million. No, well, somewhere probably, but they were really concerned about consumers buying their stuff. They wanted consumers to buy it. They didn't want consumers to feel like, oh, there's this thing and it's something that I don't need, but it might be fun. They're like, and this is cheap and it's gonna be cool. They have done that, and a lot of people have criticized them because it's like, oh, the graphics aren't good. Well, is the gameplay in the games good? The ones that Nintendo released and a good amount of other companies have that released Wii games, they were good games, but I don't know. They've always really cared about consumers and.
Okay, what the fuck? You guys are all fucking nerds. How the hell did I get up in a room full of fucking nerds?
How did you end up?
You came to the Nerdcast, Ellison.
This isn't a Nerdcast. This is the Gamergate. They're talking about games. What the fuck?
You didn't expect that that gamers were nerds?
Well, actually,
No.
since we are talking about the Wii, and it actually was marketed towards non-nerds, that would actually make us non-nerds because we're talking about the Wii.
Yeah.
No, but I mean the fact that we know this much about all of these different things, though.
Nerds.
I mean that we are
All right,
still
maybe.
nerds.
I just want to say really quick though that Nintendo's philosophy under Iwata and always in general, but especially clearly under Iwata, video games should be fun. Dun dun dun.
That's crazy talk. They
I
should,
know, that's absurd.
they should be more.
Get out of here.
You misogynist shitlord? Games should be a slog. They should be like living in a Soviet gulag.
Yes.
Games should be
They should
Soviet
break
Russia.
Spirit.
I'm waiting on the.
Russia
I'm
video
waiting on
games play you.
Games should be preachy and drag you by the balls through a fucking story that you never had.
And even if
I'm
you don't
waiting
have
on
balls.
From beginning to end. That is
Yes.
linear as fuck.
I want an amiibo.
Drag you by the balls.
Characters of
story.
Revolution 60.
Oh,
Amiibo?
Amiibos are actually a very good decision on Nintendo's part, but I don't care about them, honestly. I'm just going to say that real quick.
Don't care about who.
Amiibos. There was a good
Oh,
financial decision and an interesting creative decision, and according to Iwata, or whatever, I may have pronounced his name wrong.
Iwata.
Yeah. Amiibos are not just a ripoff of Skylanders and whatever the other stuff is.
Disney one. Yeah.
Yeah, they're more. There's something that it's like basically little things that you can do in all their games, and I think that honestly makes sense that in what he's saying that they're different because they work with every game that they're where the developers are like, yeah, it's gonna work with it. I mean, I don't know. I don't care about Amiibos, and they should probably work on the shortage issues. But I don't think that was a bad decision either.
Yeah, nerd rage.
Although there was a bad decision with the Wii U and how they didn't market it properly at the beginning, and Iwata admitted that was a bad decision.
If I may, about the Wii U, I can tell you
Yeah.
what the problem with the Wii U is.
No, you won't.
I can tell you what the problem is.
I love my Wii U.
It's the reason for the failure of the Wii U is the same reason of the success of the Wii. You have the Wii was, and I don't want to end this on a downer, so I will say some nice things about Iwata before we close out. The Wii was the fastest selling and most bought console of its time, and everyone, like, well, not everyone, but like it's the one that most people owned, so it was like the most purchased, but it was actually the least played. And the reason why it was the least played was because once the novelty of the Wii wore off, for the people that weren't really like big hardcore gamers, they put it on the shelf and it just sort of sat there. And they only pulled it out once in a blue moon when they had company to play tennis or whatever. And they didn't really sell a lot of games on that console because most people who were very casual didn't feel the need to have a library larger than, say, 4 or 5 games at the most.
Or just Wii Sports.
I'm sorry?
Or just Wii Sports.
Yeah, or they would just stay with Wii Sports and Wii Fit and a couple of titles. So it was like, it was a double-edged sword because the hardcore gamers are the ones that are going to spend the money over a long period of time. But the casuals and people who were only playing it for the novelty weren't really going to invest a lot of money in it, even though it was cheap. When the Wii U came around, they were trying to market it to the same audience, who most of those people, since they're not really invested in the advancement of the technology of the console, they would look at it and they'd say, well, that looks nicer, but I have a Wii. I don't really need that. So they weren't going to buy it. You have to it's sort of like trying to catch lightning in a bottle again. It worked the first time because it was novel, but it's not novel anymore. And you still have to find a way to get that hardcore audience, the people who are devoted and committed, and that's tricky. And I think that's my thinking as to why that happened.
That's very accurate. In general.
Yeah.
Okay, Brian,
So-
let's wrap this up before we get
So-
the nerd piece.
In closing, Iwata, some of us grew out of Nintendo, some of us stuck with it all the way. And
A true fan.
well, I mean, I got sick of Zelda. I'm sorry, I just did.
That's
But
fair.
but I still
Blasphemy.
loved it for when it was around. You know, I just wanted new things. But some people, you know, I will always have respect for Nintendo, and I think that many people will. So, we did lose a great mind at the time. So, I hope that wherever he is, he's making games still. And that's all. I just wanted to say, you know, with my condolences, you will be missed. And anytime, even if I'm not a fan, anytime we lose someone who is a great mind in the industry of games, everyone loses a little bit because there's a little bit less competition out there, and people have to work a little bit less hard to be the best. So, and that's all. Yes, he's making games in Valhalla.
Splatoon.
Splatoon! Quiz Kid, that's the
Splatoon.
best.
Splatoon! Kids are
Is that supposed to be screamed? Because I could do that.
Splatoon is a kid squid are turning into kid squid.
I
I've
don't
seen
know.
far too much hentai to know where this.
Okay,
Not know where this is going.
People, you know, nerds. People and nerds are mutually exclusive, of course.
I know exactly where this is going.
Oh, I made Brian sigh.
All right, so I think we should go. I don't
Yeah, I think we should go. But before we go,
well, if you guys have any final words for about Iwata or PAO or the game Sunset, or if you learn any new news regarding what was going on with Airplay, please feel free to leave a comment. You know, in our comment section, we love reading them.
do we?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we do.
Man. I mean, it's 50% you guys fucking suck and the tone sucks and you all should die. No, it isn't. You guys are
We love
very
reading
sweet.
those the most.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we're really sticking it to you if you hate us. We're not going anywhere. No, but actually, I was also thinking, listening to you guys, maybe we should do like a review of games on this show. Do
Oh, I
something a
love
little more
reviewing
positive. Yeah, exactly. Let's do something a little more positive. Yeah, there you go. Panina. I got the nerds excited here. I got the nerds excited with my idea. I'm not a nerd, by the way. I'm
Such a
totally
nerd
not.
baiter, Allison. You know our weakness.
Yeah.
Damn it.
I'm the nerd. I'm the nerd herder.
Don't lie, Allison. You're a fucking huge nerd.
I like bringing attention to sleeper, obscure console games that most people never heard of, but they are console games. So, and you might have to hunt them down because I got shit like on the Saturn and the Dreamcast and shit that no one's ever played.
Okay, so gamers are supposed to be geeks, according to Hannah. I don't really. What would be the difference?
Oh, a nerd just knows like the inner workings of how everything is, but they know all the names and facts and dates and stuff. And
And they know
doesn't-
science and
yeah, and a geek is more familiar with like culture.
Sorry.
around it.
The culture.
That's a hell of a cold you've got there, Anna.
Nerds get their lockers stacked and they get swirlies and they get their underwear pulled up to their ears, whereas as geeks get called pencil necked and get the shit beat out of them out on the football field behind the school after.
Well, I was going to actually say that nerds are more of like the hard science, like Brian said, they know the facts, they know like details that are like canon and hard and researchable, whereas geeks just enjoy other people who are fans, and it's all social rather than like.
From my knowledge,
are
nerds are encyclopedias of things.
Yes.
Geeks are do-it-yourselfers of things.
Autists tend
Yes.
to be nerds because geek requires socialness.
I think
Yes.
Depends
All
on.
right, we're way off topic now.
yeah, we gotta go.
Off the
We are
topic of
now-
ending this show.
Nerding the discussion between nerds and geeks.
Yes,
That only proves that
we're,
we're both.
so we're basically nerdception at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have any ideas of any games you'd like us to review, send them to what is the hell topic@badgerpod.com. Sorry, I just blanked on the. That's topic@badgerpod.com. And yeah, I have a shill to do, and it's an unusual shill. It's probably going to get me in trouble with with certain parties, but I have restarted the Honey Badger Tumblr, so you can find it at Honey Badger Radio on Tumblr, and I am doing posts on *Halt and Catch Fire*, and I have a reason for it. I believe that that is the Gamergate and men's rights activist and advocate community, could claim that show for our own. It has strategic significance. It's like Australia in a game of Risk. It's large but also isolated.
Madness, Allison.
No, it's not madness.
That isn't what you speak.
Wait.
No, there's no madness here. We can claim it, and
Wait,
we can.
gives you skin cancer?
What gives you skin cancer?
Australia. And the entire country tries to kill you.
No, we don't claim Australia. It's an analogy. It's not literally claiming Australia. And also, I wasn't talking about Australia the continent. I was talking about Australia, the icon on a Risk board. Because it's big and it's isolated. So you claim Australia, and you
Now
have
you're
a
claiming
large
your
base, and then you can...
Parents play Risk.
Okay, whatever.
I'm sorry.
Don't explain the analogy. Anyway, I won't just be talking about *Halt and Catch Fire*. I just think that it has great strategic and significance for this particular fight. But I will also be Tumblrizing about other things like SwearNet and other stuff that I watch and enjoy. So please head over to Tumblr and look up Honey Badger Radio and follow it. And listen to me, because I think we can do this thing. I think we can take over this fandom. But anyway, Brian, stop me.
Right.
I'm wittering.
I'm gonna take us out. So